Tonight at 10, as rockets continue to rain down across the Middle East, Britain agrees to let US forces use British bases to strike Iran. The capital, Tehran, has been the main target, with the authorities there saying hundreds of civilians have been killed. A hospital has also been hit. It followed earlier strikes targeting the regime's headquarters in the capital, still reeling after the death of the Supreme Leader.
In the last hour, the Prime Minister has accepted a request from the US to use British military bases to launch defensive strikes.
Here in the US, President Trump has announced the deaths of 3 service personnel, as he says American combat operations will continue until all of its objectives have been achieved.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen.
Also, global economic fears tonight as an oil tanker under sanction from America is attacked in a key shipping lane. The Iranians are striking back, targeting Israel. 9 people have died in the city of Beit Shemesh, while commercial flights have been suspended across the Middle East. This, Dubai's airport, a major gateway to the Gulf. Hello to you on another dramatic day of developments here in the Middle East as Israel launches more airstrikes against targets in Iran, which came after state television there confirmed the death of the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. 3 US service personnel have also been killed, the first to die in the conflict. And in the last hour, Sir Keir Starmer says the UK will allow the United States to use British military bases to launch defensive strikes. Well, Israeli forces have been carrying out a sustained bombing campaign of Iranian targets, including in the capital Tehran, where command centers of the Revolutionary Guard have been hit. Tonight, witnesses also report a hospital in the city was struck, with patients having to be evacuated. The Iranians have been retaliating with their own missile strikes right across the region. 9 people were killed in the city of Beit Shemesh in Israel. 11 others are missing. While missiles also hit us here in Tel Aviv overnight, with 1 woman being killed and around 20 others injured. We witnessed that strike as the missile came in, not far off in the distance behind our position here. The target, an Israeli military facility, but the munitions fell short. Throughout the day, we've also had numerous air raid sirens go off here, spending several minutes each time in a bomb shelter. Things are, thankfully, a little quieter now. Well, Iran says hundreds of civilians have been killed since the assault began. Our first report tonight is from our international editor, Jeremy Bowen.
Tehran is being hammered for a second night. The Americans and the Israelis are pushing hard to exploit any Iranian weakness or confusion after the killing of their supreme leader. The message is that they dominate the skies and there's no place to hide. Back in the US, Donald Trump told the regime to capitulate or else.
We are the world's greatest and most powerful nation, so we can do something about what they do. These intolerable threats will not continue any longer. I once again urge the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military, police, to lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death. It will be certain death. Won't be pretty. I call upon all Iranian patriots who yearn for freedom to seize this moment, to be brave, be bold, be heroic, and take back your country.
And in Tehran, a strike hit the headquarters of the state broadcasting company. The Gandhi Hospital in North Tehran and 3 residential buildings next to it were badly damaged. Unless they're being used as military positions, the laws of war say hospitals are protected places. This incubator pushed out into the street seems to have a baby in it. In a city under attack, thousands of supporters of the regime gathered for the first of 40 days of mourning for the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The regime retains a solid base of support despite the recent mass protests. His killing is a huge blow for regime loyalists and a seismic moment in this war, but it doesn't necessarily mean the end of the regime. Its founders, nearly 50 years ago, designed its institutions to survive wars and assassinations. It is not a one-man show. Iran is extending the war into the Gulf. 2 weeks ago, it released video of naval commandos practicing blockading the vital sea lane through the Strait of Hormuz. And now they're doing it for real. Stopping oil exports from the Gulf longer term would cause global economic damage. In peacetime, around 1/5 of world oil supplies, 20 million barrels a day, are shipped out of the Gulf through Hormuz. The shipping lanes are only 10 kilometers wide at their narrowest point. This burning tanker is believed to be used for Iranian exports the US Navy is hitting back. In Tehran and other cities, some Iranians dared to celebrate Khamenei's death. Killing the Ayatollah strips the war to its essentials. On one side, Donald Trump's belief that US and Israeli air power and assassinations will clear the way for the regime's opponents to seize power. And on the other, the resilience of the regime. This is Israeli military video of another strike at a base in Tehran. It's now clear what this war is all about for Israel and the US, regime change imposed by air power. Something never done before. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "This combined effort allows us to do what I've hoped to achieve for 40 years, to crush the regime of terror completely. That's my promise," he said, and this is what is going to happen. Salvage operations continue at the girls' school in southern Iran, destroyed in an airstrike on day one of the bombing. Iranian officials now say 153 were killed here, including many schoolgirls.
The world must know the truth. This is a child's textbook. The children are buried beneath the rubble, and they were all civilians. They came here for school this morning.
The US has not eased up its bombing campaign. While this was going on, Donald Trump told the US magazine The Atlantic that Iran's surviving leaders want to talk and that he's agreed. But they were talking before the US and Israel attacked them too. All day Tehran was under fire. Iran cannot match American and Israeli firepower, but it might not need to. Iran can fight back. It is not facing a ground invasion, and victory for the regime means the survival of the Islamic Republic, no matter who the US and Israel kill. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News.
Well, within the last hour, the UK has agreed to an American request to use British military bases to strike Iranian missile sites. Now, the Prime Minister made this announcement in a video filmed and released by Downing Street with no opportunity for media questions.
The United States has requested permission to use British bases for that specific and limited defensive purpose. We have taken the decision to accept this request to prevent Iran firing missiles across the region, killing innocent civilians, putting British lives at risk, and hitting countries that have not been involved.
Joe Pike is at Downing Street for us. Joe, slightly confusing messaging from the government about UK involvement in all this. Does this amount to a U-turn?
I think the view here in Downing Street, Clive, is the situation has changed and therefore the UK government's approach has changed too. Two things significant in what Keir Starmer has said. Firstly, I think he is aware that 200,000 British nationals are in that region. We've seen those images of hotels, for example, being hit. Secondly, this case of UK military personnel on a base in Bahrain narrowly missing one strike too. We're not talking about UK bases being used to launch sort of assassination strikes. This is about specific strikes, we're told, on Iranian missile sites. I think certainly 2003 and the Iraq war looms significantly for Labour. That's why the Prime Minister has mentioned this is in tune with international law. They've already published some of the legal advice that is available on the government website. Also some UK opposition party political reaction coming in. And as with yesterday, this generally falls and splits along left-right lines. Nigel Farage saying better late than never. The Prime Minister is a follower, not a leader. And Zach Polanski of the Green Party in England and Wales saying the Prime Minister has jumped into yet another Middle East illegal war, failing to learn the lessons, he says, of the tragedies of Iraq, Libya and Syria. Certainly we know in recent weeks Donald Trump and Keir Starmer have had some disagreements. It's likely this will be welcomed in the White House.
All right, Joe, thank you. Joe Pike there in Downing Street for us. Well, Operation Epic Fury was launched from Donald Trump's Florida residence, Mar-a-Lago, late on Friday night. The BBC security analyst, Gordon Carrera, takes a look now at the military and intelligence planning behind the operation.
Iran's Supreme Leader knew he was a target, and yet the US and Israel still managed to get to him. So how did they do that? A post by President Trump on social media gives us one indication of how. Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead, the president said. He was unable to avoid our intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems. And working closely with Israel, there was not a thing he or the other leaders that have been killed along with him could do. So how was it done? Intelligence provided a lead, not just of where the Supreme Leader was, but where he would be in a few hours. A meeting at his compound on Saturday morning. That created a window of opportunity. But where did it come from? The CIA and Israel's Mossad had spent months building up an intelligence picture of the movement of Iran's top figures, perhaps by tracking phones and associates. It's believed to be the CIA who picked up the crucial details of the Supreme Leader's meeting, which they then shared with Israel. That led to a decision to carry out an unusual attack in the morning rather than at night, and to trigger the start of the wider campaign. Fighter jets set off at 6 a.m. local time from Israel, heading towards Tehran. They were armed with long-range missiles which could be fired at a distance. And then, around 9:40 Iranian time, they struck the target. 30 bombs are thought to have hit the Supreme Leader's compound. The Supreme Leader was killed, and so were a significant number of other senior intelligence, military and security personnel. The killings are a major blow for the Iranian leadership, but one for which they have been prepared, even if they couldn't prevent it happening, and even Supreme Leaders can be replaced. Gordon Carrera, BBC News.
I'll look at some of the planning behind the attacks here. Well, the US military has confirmed that 3 service members have been killed as part of the military campaign, with another 5 seriously injured. Sarah Smith is live at the White House for us. Sarah, we've heard a little bit of what Donald Trump has been saying this evening. What more did he have to add?
Well, for the first time, he addressed those 3 service members who've lost their life in that video that was posted on social media just a few minutes ago. And he said the nation will grieve for them, but they will probably not be the last casualties of this conflict.
And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible where that won't be the case. But America will avenge their deaths and deliver the most punishing blow to the terrorists who have waged war against basically civilization.
Now, that video did not make a very clear case for the American people as to why it was necessary for these US lives to have been lost, why it was so important for this conflict to be launched now. What was the imminent threat to the United States? And people will be asking him that in the days to come. He has also suggested today that this might be a campaign that lasts about 4 weeks long. He said that that was what they had been planning for, that's what he's expecting, but that it is going so well at the moment, he believes that they're actually ahead of schedule.
All right, Sarah, thank you. Sarah Smith, our North America editor there at the White House. Well, the Israeli defense minister here has called the killing of Iran's supreme leader a turning point in the conflict and has called up 100,000 army reservists for the military operation. As we've been hearing, Iran has retaliated with multiple strikes. Israeli police say at least 9 people were killed in a missile attack on the town of Beit Shemesh near Jerusalem. Lucy Williamson has the latest on that.
In a safe room, in a synagogue, Iran found a chink in Israel's armour, big enough for a missile to slip through. All day they brought out the dead and injured. At least 9 killed here and dozens injured. They're still looking for more. A local bus driver told me he came here every Saturday. It was the blessing of my week, he said. Next to him, opposition leader Yoav Hendel said Israel could no longer live with the threat from Iran.
What we are doing actually is to make sure that the world is a better place and the world can be safe again, because in the last 30 years even, or 20 years, we speak a lot about diplomacy, we speak a lot about sanctions, we speak a lot about discussions with the Iranian regime, but no outcomes. And this is an outcome.
Last night, this missile strike in Tel Aviv marked the start of Israel's casualties in this war. A woman killed and some 20 injured. The apartment block today in ruins. Iran's ballistic missiles delivering a message that it can still launch attacks, even with its leader gone.
We were getting a bit cocky with the missiles, after an entire day of bombings, we were taking our time, and when in hindsight it wasn't smart because we heard a huge boom, the ground shook, we all got scared.
While we were there, another alarm.
And we've just had another alert. They're coming in, wave after wave after wave of them.
Outside, the remains of the missile lies twisted on a fence. Many Israelis say they won't have peace while the Iranian regime survives in Tehran, and that this is a war they're willing to fight, as long as they don't have to fight it again. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Tel Aviv.
Well, it's not just Israel that's been affected. The attacks on Iran have sent shockwaves right across the whole region. The Qatari capital, Doha, usually bustling with businesses and tourists, is now empty largely in the city centre because of the sound of anti-aircraft fire ringing out all the time. Our correspondent Barbara Pletasha has sent us this report from Doha.
This afternoon, Doha did not look like a city under attack. But life here is not normal. People are staying home. This morning, smoke blackened the skyline, caused by a missile shot out of the sky. The Qataris intercept most of them, but there's been damage and injuries. The airport is closed, passengers stranded. Mustafa is making the best of his unexpected visit to Qatar.
One night I will stay this hotel. Tomorrow I don't know what happened. If I'm lucky, I come back to my country to go to Istanbul.
This is exactly what the Gulf states were afraid would happen. They're stable, prosperous economies built on oil exports, hubs for finance and tourism, disrupted by the war in Iran. And now with the violent death of the Ayatollah Khamenei, there's questions not only about what that means for Iran's future, but for the stability of the region.
Another black cloud, this time at a naval base in Abu Dhabi. The Iranians say they're aiming at U.S. military targets, not attacking their neighbors. But other sites are also getting hit. Over Kuwait, a drone shot down this morning. There have also been drone strikes on the airport there. And in Bahrain, a wall of flame, America's main Mideast naval base on fire. Relations between Gulf states and Iran have often been tense, but nothing like now. These are new and frightening times. Barbara Platt-Usher, BBC News, Doha.
Yeah, from Doha to Dubai, where two luxury hotels and its main airport, the world's busiest by passenger traffic, have been damaged. The BBC understands the government is formulating plans to potentially evacuate UK nationals from around the Middle East. Well, we've been speaking to people on holiday in Dubai, as well as those who live there, and Mark Ashdown has that story.
Chaos at Dubai's international airport, damaged in an Iranian strike which left 4 staff injured. It remains closed, with thousands of flights to and from the wider region also grounded. After an explosion at the Fairmont Palm Hotel, holidaymakers across the luxurious Jumeirah Bay had to take shelter. Among them Trevor Davies and his wife on the trip of a lifetime for her 60th birthday today.
We heard a number of explosions and we could see and hear missiles going overhead, and they were being shot down. Some of the debris was literally falling around, well, not on us, but it fell into the fountain, into the hotel. And so it was pretty scary.
All day long the sky has been alight with explosions. This footage posted on social media seems to show an Iranian drone hitting a residential block. A man with a British accent posted this.
No joking, guys, we have just been hit by a drone. We heard it coming. It stinks of oil in here. I didn't even finish my cup of tea.
The United Arab Emirates said its military has so far dealt with 165 ballistic missiles, 2 cruise missiles and 541 drones. The UK Foreign Office is advising against travelling to a dozen countries across the region.
If you booked directly with the airline and your flight's been cancelled, then check with them about your rebooking options and, if need be, a refund. If you booked accommodation separately, then check, and you haven't been able to use it, then check with your insurance company, see if they'll cover it. If you booked a package holiday, check with the tour operator. If your holiday's been cancelled, they'll allow you to rebook, even potentially to a different destination, or if not, give you a full refund. And if you are overseas at the moment, it's incredibly important that you register with the Foreign Office. They have that. You can do that online. It's called Register Your Presence. So they know where you are.
Dubai has grown in recent years to become the 3rd most visited city in the world, attracting celebrities and influencers, some posting updates as these attacks unfolded.
We came to Dubai to feel safe.
Tourism has ground to a halt, fears too about the oil industry, with tankers coming under attack in the nearby Strait of Hormuz. If that dries up too, the effects of this conflict will spread far beyond these shores. Mark Ashdown, BBC News.
Well, what another consequential day this has been here in the Middle East. As the regime in Iran moves to choose a new leader, Israel and America are choosing their next targets in the country to attack. Iran's air defenses are pretty much non-existent. US and Israeli jets control the skies. But destroying Iran's military infrastructure doesn't mean the regime itself is about to fall. If anything, the governing establishment could be even more determined to cling on. That's it from me and the team here in Tel Aviv. Now it's back to Rita in London.
Clive, thank you. Well, with me to reflect on what this conflict means for the region and for us is our international editor, Jeremy Bowen, and our economics editor, Faisal Islam. Faisal, first, there are growing fears tonight about a rise in the price of oil as a consequence of all of this.
Yes, Rita, international markets are just opening in Asia, and you see some nervousness, I'll just put it like that, because there is the possibility, not the certainty of the kind of worst nightmare for the oil markets happening. You're seeing moves into the dollar, you're seeing government bonds in Australia and New Zealand also seeing flows into them. That's a sign of the nerves as the markets start to open. But the focus obviously is on the oil market, and that's because of the key hold this region has, and in particular the Gulf has, on flows of oil and of gas as well, which is increasingly important. You can see here the map of the Gulf. You can see Iran there dominating. We zoom in there. That's the Straits of Hormuz, only a couple of dozen miles wide at that point. and therefore a choke point for a fifth of the world's oil supply and a lot of gas too travelling in. Now, I should say that this is, if you like, physically a problem mainly for Asia. Those flows go to India and China and Japan and Korea. But of course, if there are problems, and it's important to say that the Iranians don't say they formally closed that strait, but it does happen to have not seen much traffic, partly because of insurance. We're seeing 150 tankers dropping anchor in the open Gulf. We've seen 3 tankers having been attacked. We've seen some informal trade up 10% at $80 a barrel from 72, already a 7-month high, which could flow through into petrol prices, for example. But if it is formally closed by the Iranians, and I should clarify, the Foreign Secretary of Iran says that they're not going to do that, but they've done, a lot worse in terms of attacking Gulf nations than we would have thought, then that could see as high as $100 a barrel. We've seen that, and that is the sort of nightmare scenario. And I do think that when you hear from Donald Trump saying 4 weeks, is that that is a message to the oil markets to try to stay calm.
And Jeremy, how do you assess where things stand tonight?
Well, we heard Donald Trump today, bullish as ever. This is all going really well. They've killed the Supreme Leader. An ultimatum to the regime, lay down your arms or die. And then saying once again to the Iranian people, and then it's up to you guys, you take over. How does that happen? How do they go from inflicting damage on the regime, which clearly they're doing, to actually getting to a place where these people who he salutes in Iran, protesters and so on, will be able to go and take over the country? It's a big country. It's 3 times the size of Iraq almost. It has more than 90 million people. They're not sending in troops on the ground. The opposition forces are not united. They don't have a government in exile. They don't appear to have weapons. How do they then somehow dislodge a very embedded regime? It would take the total collapse of the regime. And right now, that does not appear to be happening because, as I said in my report, when they built these institutions that underpin it, they deliberately worked to make them as resilient as possible if something like the killing of the Supreme Leader happened.
Jeremy, thank you. Jeremy Bowen, Faisal Islam, thank you both very much.